Hello everyone, it's me, Augustus. This cover sheet is perfectly fine. And I'm here with another live. I'm gonna close down this window over here. Just to keep the outside noise as much as possible outside of this living room. Let me know if you can hear me clearly, please. In the live chat right now. Let me know if you can hear me clearly. All right, it's 8:05 p.m. right now. So I want to finish live soon in an hour and a half maximum. But please, can you hear me clearly? Let me know in the live chat, please. Let me know. All right, you can hear me perfectly. Okay, that is good. So, okay. Now, I want to start up with this guy, Alexander of Macedonia. We also call him Alexander the Great. They title him the Great in history books. He wasn't that great at all, but okay. Alexander is also known as Apollo, or the god Apollo, or Apollyon, or Helios. It's the same figure, okay? When Alexander established the Greek Empire, which for political purposes they call the Macedonian Empire today, well, when I was still 10 years old, scholars say Greek Empire, so I'll just go with that Greek Empire, okay? Because it was the Greek world he spread around. So when he established the Greek Empire, his goal was to establish a world Greek culture. So a world culture that was Greek, where everyone would be integrated politically and religiously, with him as a central figure. And pagans back then, as well as the politicians, they codified Alexander as XXX, or 666. Helios, Helios, Helios. So they would mention his name twice, was a way to honor him. So 666 refers to the XXX, Helios, 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 and he's identified as a destroyer or Antichrist in Revelation chapter 9, verse 11. Okay? So this world Greek culture with a world Greek religion, that was the sole purpose of Alexander of Macedonia. All right? Unfortunately, his body died off. His four generals divided the empire into four pieces. Then there were Greek aristocrats, and also aristocrats from Macedonia, going to Central Asia, establishing Greek kingdoms over there. So he went to India and established Greek settlements. The Roman Republic was also expanding over there. And remember, Rome began as a mixed Greek city. It was a mixed Greek colony with a mixed population. Later, it became a kingdom, then a republic, okay? Because they thought we don't need this central figure anymore. Later found out they needed it. So the Roman Republic was a political system from a mixed Greek population. The elite were still European Greek, I would say white Greeks, but the population were mixed Greeks. And also a lot of migrants living there too. Rome was a city of migrants. So when they began to take over the Italian peninsula, they faced resistance. But anyway, when Alexander of Macedonia died it was in the 4th century BC. Well, 4th century is 329 BC, I believe he passed away. I can be wrong about the exact year, but then around that time he passed away. After he died, the Greek world was a mess, okay? 200 years later, Julius Caesar, we call Julius Caesar, expanded the grip of the Roman Republic. So from all the Greek states on the earth, the Roman Republic was the biggest. But the thing is, the Romans, they don't want to be identified as Greek. You need to understand one thing. The Greeks themselves never called themselves Greek internally. Those from Athens called themselves Athenians. Those from Sparta called themselves Spartans. Those from Epirus called themselves Epirots. Those from Crete called themselves Cretans, they call themselves. Those from Thessalonica called themselves Thessalonians. So it goes on and on. And those from Rome called themselves Romans. So the Romans, they don't want to be categorized as Greek because they wanted to include the Celtic and Germanic tribes in Europe into their sphere of influence. The issue was the world Greek culture that the Greeks established. Despite the Greek states not being united, the Greek states managed to establish a world Greek culture with a world Greek religion. But it was a harsh one, very hard one, into your face. And the misogyny in this world Greek culture was so into your face that the Germanic tribes, as well as some of the Celtic tribes, were kind of opposed to it. So in Rome, the people that ran the Roman Republic wanted to have a softer version of the world Greek culture, because they thought we can do it better. So they developed Roman culture. Now, eventually, okay, Julius Caesar was assassinated. Long story short, there was a whole civil war that happened in the Greek world. And eventually, this guy over here, Gaius Octavianus, he managed to unite the Greek states. And he decided Rome is now the center of the world, politically, financially, and religiously. And we are going to reform this world culture that's been established into Roman culture. We still use Greek, we speak Greek and daily, but it's a Roman culture. The issue is, for over 300 years, everyone was used right to the world Greek culture that was around. And now, this guy wants to make it Roman. But a lot of people thought, a lot of men, we speak Greek as a spoken language between each other, besides our native languages. We have no interest in learning this thing called Latin. So Romanization only happened on the Italian peninsula, and to a big extent in Gaul, which was ancient France, and later, just long after Gaius passed away, also in Dacia, which today everybody call Romania. By the way, Romania literally means Roman Empire. Basileia Romania, that's how you would say Roman Empire in ancient Greek. But anyway, what I'm saying is, this guy over here, Gaius, he had a big problem. Let me explain how big his problems were. Okay? 27 BC, around 30 BC. All right. You had the Han Dynasty in Asia, where the Greek dominance was indirect. Then you had the Parthian kingdom, also called the Parthian Empire by historians, but it was actually a kingdom, which was also a Greek establishment to cover a big portion of Asia, which dominated also India. It didn't take over India, but it had a big dominance over India. And then you had the other Greek states, which became part of the Roman Republic. But the issue is, there were problems. Within this Roman Republic thing, they realized this thing called republic cannot work. People need kingship. But Rome had this pride, we don't need kings. So this guy came with the idea, we are going to establish kingship, but we're going to do it like the Chinese did, an emperor. An emperor is overseer of kingdoms. He has his own little kingdom over there, but he oversees other kingdoms. That's the thing they took over. That's why they established the Roman Empire. You still had the quote-unquote republican facade, but it was an empire now. And you had local regional kingdoms within it. The Roman Empire, 27 BC, was established, to be precise, on the 16th of January. It had between 45 to 50 million inhabitants. All right? 45 to 50 million, this is an estimate the historians are making. Because you also have people living outside of the borders of the empire, but we're also kind of closely linked to it. So 45 to 40 million were under the direct impact of this guy over here. Only around 10% of those people were citizens, so fully integrated into the Roman society. And the capital, Roma, had around 550,000 or 500,000 actual people live there, residents, but also had people that were counted like slaves, a lot of women that had babies for men illegitimately and all that. So Historians estimate that it may be around 2 million max of people living around in Rome back then. 500,000 actual people registered there, and then you had people who were informally coming and going, around 2 million. There was a high infant mortality rate, so a lot of children died. Also because there was a lot of neglect of children also. Okay? So in the city of Rome, you had the white elite, or the European Greek elite, just like you had in all urban centers of the Greeks. But the thing with Rome was the population was mixed. You had a lot of foreigners there also, coming and going. That's why Rome was selected as the new capital of the Greek world, of the world in general, because it represented the world's population. It was mixed, and you had a lot of foreigners. Okay, and there was less rivalry saying, no, we are Athenians, we're Spartans. All that Greek rivalry wasn't really there. Now, still, people in the East Mediterranean and beyond, they don't want anything to do with something called Romanization or becoming Roman. So Gaius now, he had to convince the world that he was he had to make true that he was the one that should lead the world. And he had to Romanize the world. The world was already Hellenized. There was Hellenization going on. He wanted to Romanize it. So in this world religion that was already established, they include all the other gods from all the other nations. The Roman gods were put in the forefront. And the Roman gods were represented by priests, which were called pontifex. Pontifex, which actually means a bridge builder. Okay? So a pontifex, a Roman priest, was actually someone that had to build a bridge between the groups in society to make sure people got along. Because there was still an issue over there in the Roman Empire, social cohesion. No wonder if your empire is so big. So, this is how Gaius reformed how this world culture was governed. Above, you had the Pontifex Maximus, which we today would call the Pope. Okay? He's the head of religion worldwide. And he has this assembly that was the Collegium Pontificum, or the Pontificate College, you say in English, or the College of Priests. And the Collegium Pontificum exists out of three parts: the Rex Sacrorum, King of the Sacrifice, and this was a brotherhood for senators and politicians in a high rank to join together. And you also had the Flamen, and three of them were the Flamines Majores, the major flames. So those were the priests that were directly linked to one of the deities they were worshiping. So the god Mars, which is the fallen angel Manka, would have one man who represented them in daily life. So this how it went on and on. You also had the Vestalis, or the Vestal Virgins. Those were women. For a period of 30 years, they were removed. They had to remain abstinent from sex with men. They weren't allowed to marry, and they had to perform purity rituals for the public. If they were found having sex with a guy, they would be killed in horrible ways. And sometimes they were allowed to have sex with men, but it was holy prostitution, that's what I explained in another live stream. Okay? The Vestal Virgins, or the Vestalis, it was abolished in that form in 382 AD under Emperor Gratianus, who claimed to be a believer, but it was actually reformed into Roman Catholic nunnery. Okay, just so you know where the Roman Catholic nunnery comes from. Here's where it comes from. The Vestalis, they were reformed after Emperor Gratianus, all right, in 382 AD. All right, so anyway, this was how the world relation was led. And in this, Gaius became, as Pontifex Maximus, the most high priest. He was also the princeps, or he was the first amongst all men. So that's why his government was called the Principate. So Roman Empire is also called the Principate because he, the princeps, he was the principle that all men followed. That's why you have to learn principles from. A principle is a value or a code of behavior, I would say, prescribed by you by the princeps. All right? So before I continue, is this all clear to you now? That Gaius had a difficult task convincing the world it was worth to leave them. So he wanted to reform the world's religion into a Romanized way with these institutions, and politically he had to establish an empire with him as the princeps. The title Augustus was credited onto him by the Senate. Augustus simply means the exalted one. Okay? So you wouldn't say emperor back then in ancient Rome, you would say Caesar, or you would say Augustus, or you would say princeps. That's how you would say it back then. So is this all clear to you now? Before I continue, is this clear? Yeah, let me check what the rest is saying. Okay. So, 27 BC, Roman Empire, not this weird republic thing anymore with the sort of stable and empire. And the empire was successful aesthetically, that people actually went along with it. We're an empire now. The world is in order now. You have the Roman emperor in Rome, you have the princeps in Rome that runs everything to make sure everything goes smoothly. You have the Parthian kingdom over there and the Han dynasty far away, and all three are under the sway of this one guy over here in Rome. So, what's the problem now? The problem is you need to have a firm Roman identity. What is a Roman? Okay? Is a Roman anyone with Roman citizenship? Because you had Syrians, you had Egyptians, you had migrants from China that may even lived back then, who became Roman citizens. So if citizenship means you're Roman, so anyone can be a Roman then. But if everyone can be a Roman, what's the purpose of becoming Roman? Or is Rome someone actually that's from the city of Rome? Okay, if the city of Rome needs to have a character, there needs to be a Roman population that carries out this character. Because remember, you had a world Greek religion, and the world Greek culture was a bit harsh into your face. And Rome said, no, we are an evolution of ancient Greece. We are mixed Greek people, we're more inclusive, we're more peaceful, we're more this and that. They claim to be the light of the world. So if the Rome now had to prove its enlightened culture. But to have enlightened culture, you need to have their European Greek population stable. And the European Greek population of Rome was not stable. They lacked having children, and that brought the whole imagery and culture of Rome in danger. How are you going to Romanize the world and lead a Roman Empire if there's not a stable Roman population that reflects this empire? Yes, you have the mixed population that represents the world's population, but you need to have a Roman top population that runs this. And you also want everyone to have a stable population also. So that's why in 18 BC, that is 9 years after he took the throne of the world, he came with a set of laws called the Julian laws. Julia, it was an honorary title in ancient Rome. Gave it to cities, gave it to people, and it's a transgender title of Julius. Julius means from the line of the sun and the first to Apollo. And as Apollo used to cross-dress all of that, you have this effeminate title, Julia. So here you have him come with a set of laws, the Lex Julia de Maritandis Ordinibus. It's my best Latin pronunciation I have. Lex Julia de Maritandis Ordinibus. And this set of laws were then imposed on the Roman population directly, but that was also adopted elsewhere in the empire indirectly. Because this is when you understand about human behavior. Humans follow whoever is on top of them. That's what human beings do. If someone is born in China, they are shaped by the Chinese government and Chinese politicians. If someone was born in Brazil, they are shaped by the Brazilian politics or whatever. So we're all shaped by the environment. And as human beings, we tend to follow those on top of us. So whenever a politician or a government comes with a law or a new direction, it will shape the culture too. And the purpose of all these laws were to shape the world's culture, to make Rome the center. He saw himself as a successor of Alexander. Problem was, he was a failure on the personal level. He was not a military hero because sometimes with fights going on, he would come on a few days later on a horse, claim he was part of the big fight while he wasn't actually there. So militarily, he was a hoax. When it comes to sexual relationships, he was kind of a disaster because, as you know, this loose booty boy loving shit was going on back then a lot. This Greek thing, and it was part of it too. He was not considered physically that strong to begin with. So, of course, you're not considered physically strong when it comes to the loose booty thing. You're the one bending over. So, just so I want you to understand this. I want to go to become too visual about it. And also, he didn't have good relationships with women in general also. So, that was a problem already. He also, how should I say, you want to reform the world's culture, but you're not a prime example of how it should be either. And now you want to have something to say over the sexual affairs of everyone. There's one thing you need to understand. Back then, before he came up with all these laws, marriage was regulated by communities locally. If you saw a woman you liked sexually, you would talk to her, then talk to people from the community, you meet her dad, and then the community chief and the community leaders will talk to one another, and you have a wedding and you're married. And for practical reasons, they would write down in some notebook, Julius married Olivia, for example, something like that. Or sometimes you would just join a woman, or a woman would join you, you live together in the same house, and the people see you guys are just married, okay? And they would register you later. So registration was just for practical things. For example, if the husband dies, we know, okay, this was his wife, so this was his children, just for practical administrative purposes, locally. But when it comes to marriage and sexual relations, it were the fathers of the women and the community leaders locally that decided on it, also on divorces. It was never a government issue. All right? This man realized, you know what? I need to have a firm grip over the world's population, starting with Rome. So from now on, I'm going to put in some laws because I know I have a big military willing to enforce them for me. In these laws, I'm going to force all the men around, especially young men, to ask permission from me to be with a woman. So from now on, marriage was not concluded by you just live with a woman long term. You don't need to wed nothing for that. Or marriage was not concluded by just a community celebrating, coming with an agreement together. Marriage now became a registration at the courthouse, where you had to ask permission to be with someone. And you had to meet certain criteria to get this permission also. And there was also pressure on you by these laws. For men was age 25, women age 30, you had to be in this registration. You had to be in this registration. And once you were in this registration, there were conditions you had to meet when it comes to labor, taxes, and all of that. Those that complied got some tax relief or some social benefits. If you failed before age 25 as a man or before age 30 as a woman to be in this registration, you would lose access to certain things in daily life. Some, for example, some were not even allowed to visit theaters, as if at some age you were not in a registration already. So let's get it straight. In 18 BC, these Julia laws he came up with, they replaced natural marriage, which is human beings coming together sexually in a community and arranging the sexual relationships, just marriage, which is done informally. It replaced marriage with this counterfeit that we now know as the wedlock. So the wedding became the ritual that locks you politically and financially to what Caesar or the princeps wants. All right? And it worked in the sense that it became the norm. You had to go to the courthouse, not to register your sexual relationships. So instead of going to the father of the woman or going to her family to talk to them, you had to go to a judge who was often sodomite himself. Okay? And he now, on an in-person level, had decided, do you meet the criteria, the financial criteria of society? Okay, then here's your license, you can be with her. And then you have a wedding to confirm the permission given by the government. And isn't that how quote-unquote marriages are arranged today? You apply for a marriage license. Once you get the license, you sign it with some witnesses, and then you confirm it with a wedding. You say, I do, or you put a ring on each other's finger, all of that. But the ring on the finger is something from the Germanic tribes. In the Germanic tribes in Europe back then, it would happen from time to time that men would go outside the community and kidnap women from other communities. And the guy that would kidnap a woman would bring one of his friends with them, and his friend would look on guard, would help him out. And the guy that helps you out kidnapping the woman, because once a woman is kidnapped in your village, the woman is considered your property now. You put a ring on her finger, and she can't go anywhere. And the guy that helps you is your best man. So that's why I think of the best men at weddings came from. It's from the Germanic tribes. The ring on your finger also. So, as you know, bridesmaids in ancient Greece, even before Gaius, women were expected to marry at age 15, somewhere in the late teens or mid to late teens, and men were often in the 30s or older. And it happened that some of the men were older, were upset when you were about to marry a young woman. So the tendency to rape the bride at the wedding, to humiliate the guy you didn't like, it happened a lot. So that's why I came up with bridesmaids. So you put several women out there all dressed like the bride, so when the rapists come, they don't know whom to choose. And if they choose someone likely, it's not the bride herself. So I know where bridesmaids come from. So what I'm saying is, the way people view this thing called marriage today is not the way Heavenly Father designed it. It's based on the Julia laws that came from this guy over here. All right? Who was a sodomite, Satanist. Oh, and don't forget, the things like calling your sex partner daddy, which a lot of women tend to do today, which is quite disturbing, it comes from this guy. Because he used to have dad is over him when he wants to do his booty in his youth going around. Okay? So, understand this. Marriage is a man and a woman, in agreement with God's design, being together sexually long term. That's marriage. And marriages are arranged by communities on a local level. That's how God designed it. And the one who is above, who decides upon it all, who has a lot to say, is God himself, who's Lord. Okay? So Lord means sex owner. Okay? And the only sex owner we have is God himself. He designed homosexuality, and he owns the copyright of human sexuality. He's the head and owner of human sexuality. So he's the Lord, and he allows human beings to decide things sexually based on his guidelines. So we are allowed to make sexual decisions as long as they're in harmony with his guidelines. So Heavenly Father gave us guidelines for human sexuality, for us to follow. As long as you follow his guidelines, he's fine with it. And while you do his guidelines, he will guide you. That's how God does it. Hold on, let me just. All right, so, okay, where was I? I'm almost done. So understand the following. Understand. What we call marriage today is not God's design. It's the wedlock. And there's another thing the wedlock does. It divides people in two groups. Illegitimate people and legitimate people. Illegitimate people are those that don't belong. Because your parents are not in the registration. Legitimate people are those who are allowed to recognize. Legitimate people can get financial benefits and financial rights. Illegitimate ones cannot. So, look at this over here with all its restrictions. Can this bring forth a real happiness in the long run? Let me know in the live chat. Let me know. Let me know. You know what the worst thing is? The guy who's failed in everything he said to do in his life, except one thing. He united the Italians and established Italy as a country. Italy became a jurisdiction of the Roman Empire. So he is called the father of Italy. In 1861, in the 19th century, they reinvented Italy as a country, which we have till this day. He's the father of Italy. So if you're Italian or of Italian ancestry, he's your father, historically speaking. Just to show you. But apart from that, Germany, Germania, as you call it, they want to establish this big subcountry Germania, was a big failure. 9 AD, he lost 30,000 men. At his force in what they call Germany. Big blow to his reputation. Just understand, the wedlock is a pagan government ritual in which you become legitimate for society and you get benefits of being legitimate in exchange for you demonizing the illegitimate. So it's a political thing. It's based on exclusion, not on inclusion and harmony. So marriage, which God designed, is healthy, good, and beneficial if you follow his guidelines. The wedlock is from this devil which broke for you. And by the way, he's dead. Jesus is resurrected when Jesus comes back. So we cling on to what is reprobate, who's dead, established. What God has installed from the beginning, we neglect. In the world, they say marriage, not wedlock. So when you hear marriage, you think that what they call marriage, what the Bible calls marriage, is exactly the same thing. It's not. When they say marriage in the world, especially when it comes to governments, they talk about the wedlock. Okay? There's something this guy established, not the Heavenly Father. And this guy establishes in honor of this Nephilim over here. So please, marriage is good. There's no such thing as sex outside of marriage. Because sex is a confirmation of a marital bond. And that's why prostitution and whoremongering is such an abomination. Because you're polluting yourself sexually. You're dishonoring yourself. So sex outside of a wedlock exists, which is called marriage in churches. But sex out of actual real marriage doesn't exist. So before I continue, I have to go for a law. Is this all clear to you? I don't have to stay for long this live stream because I've explained all this a lot already, but here you see it in view. Just look at it. Oh, by the way, the title Pontifex Maximus became the title Pope somewhere in the 5th century. So the first Pope was not Apostle Peter, but was that guy, Gaius. So anyone that has principles or morals or who believes in the wedlock, that's their God right over there. Gaius Octavianus, also called Kaiser Augustus. Look, to register your sexual relationship long-term somewhere, there's nothing wrong with it. But the belief in this permission given by the administration locally, I'm sorry, but that is idolatry. See what I mean? You can register things, but if you argue with this over here, you're an idolater. That over there produces a lot of stress, financial stress. Financial stress destroys your sexuality. So if you cling to the wedlock, that's why people always talk about you need to fight for the relationship, fight for your marriage. But you should say wedlock. Why fight for something natural God designed? Because it's not the natural thing you're involved in. This here is a financial pact that will give you financial stress. Financial stress will destroy you. So they tell us if you're born in a wedlock as a child, you're better off. But the reality is, a wedlock gives additional stress. That stress harms you sexually, both you and your partner. So if children are born in that situation, are they better off? No, they're not. I'm not saying that being born in a single parent household is better or whatever. I didn't say that. But don't think just because children are born under some this registration, they're better off. They appear better off because of the pampering of society. Reality is this brings additional stress to you. Human beings being sexual together in God's design, that's how we should do it. This is ancient Greek idolatry. That's all this is. If you want to follow this, go ahead. I'm not stopping you. But realize the place you're getting. You want to follow Jesus, the real King, the real Lord? Come and join us. All right. So, if you did, the whole idea by age 25, you should be a mature man in a wedlock, or by age 30 as a woman, you should already be as firmly established. All those cultural ideas, ancient Greece, established in the wedlock. Is there artifacts to it? Yes, there are, but it's still not following God's design. All right. So, are there questions about this topic? Let me know now. Okay, a bastard is someone that's illegitimate because they're not registered under a wedlock. You're discriminated against because your parents didn't ask permission to be sexual together. That's what it comes down to. are the questions. Okay, let me see. Well, I didn't see any other questions over here. All right. One more thing. God will never bless any wedlock. He will bless a marriage, though, absolutely. God will bless a marriage when it's established in his guidelines. But God will never bless a toxic restriction that the world came up with. And the wedlock, which we all see as true marriage, is a counterfeit, it's a toxic restriction that's weighing you down and the public down. God's not going to bless that. God will only bless real marriages. If you register to yourself for practical reasons, okay, that's registration. Make sure you have a real marriage, all right? Without all that romantic bullshit that comes with it. All right? Okay. I didn't get any questions, so I assume you all understand it. Thank you all for being here. Keep on growing in Christ, and I'll see you next time. Marriage is good because Jesus is Lord. The wedlock was established by the dead, so let the dead keep it. Be at peace. Just be at peace.